First up, Stile Antico, whose sixth and latest recording, Tune Thy Music to Thy Heart, sees them teaming up with Fretwork. Gramophone's editor, Martin Cullingford, met up with four of the singers, sisters Kate and Helen Ashby, Oliver Hunt and Matthew O'Donovan. They started by explaining their programme.
A lot of this repertoire are pieces that we've known for a while, pieces like the John Brown, Jesus Mercy. And it intrigued us because most of the repertoire we sing is sacred music written for the church, whereas pieces like Brown's Jesus Mercy is obviously must have been written for the home because it was written in a time when England was still Catholic and music and religious services would have had to be written in Latin. And obviously a lot of William Byrd's music as well was written for domestic use or use by the Catholic recusant community. So we began to discover a sort of body of music that was written for use in the home, and it's a strange idea, I think, to us today that people would recreationally sit around singing psalms and sacred music, but this is obviously a very big thing at the time in Tudor and Jacobean times through Catholic and Protestant times.
And many of the composers whose music you're singing, you will of course all be incredibly familiar from singing the music they wrote for church. Are we recognisably talking about the same sort of things the composers were writing, or are they using this different setting to experiment and try different sorts of things?
Well, what's interesting is that the secular devotional music always tended to have a rather more simple and direct style of setting when compared with the church music. And it's interesting, actually, that directness and that engagement with the text in particular was something that then was taken on by church music in the later generation. But certainly in the time of John Brown, there's something really immediate and expressive and engaging and direct about the way he sets the text.
And in terms of the sort of musical level one needs to have to sing it, you make it sound easy, of course, but is it written in a different way because it was used for potentially domestic setting?
Yes, I'd say a lot of the music is slightly simpler than the kind of overarching constructions of, for example, Marian sacred music, which meant that actually we had to approach it in a slightly different way. So rather than these kind of grand shapes that we try and find in the music with a lot of big structure, we were aiming a lot more for natural word stress, the word in a phrase that the music leads to. It's much smaller scale.
Yeah, I think if you look at something like the Campion, Never Weather Beaten Sail, I think that really shows an example of this. Really, ostensibly on the page it's very simple, but it's actually a very personal and heartfelt piece. I think there's a lot of fantastic music within this simple style. I think a lot of it was written for less well-trained musicians than that would be singing in church. This is very much the rising middle classes who are educated in music but not professional musicians.
So the Campion, for example, is like a hymn tune. We're all singing in homophony throughout the whole thing, and so there's less polyphonic writing on this disc than perhaps on some of our others.
One of the things I found very interesting when looking into this programme was that in particularly the earlier books printed for domestic use of sacred music, they included in the introduction a guide on how to read music. Right. So this was in all of these domestic psalters, they included a guide on how to read music. So this is obviously a way of educating people, and then this is all stuff from sort of Edward's time, basically. By the time you get to the Jacobean music, it's pretty complicated compared to the Edwardine style, but it was obviously written for the middle class amateur market, as Helen said.
Well, that's a more depressing reflection on the modern age than that age. This is the case. So obviously, a huge amount of music you could have chosen to put in there. How did you settle on the programme that you did? What were you looking for?
Well, we really wanted to have a kind of broad spread of music from sort of 200 years worth of this music, really, maybe not quite as much as that, but so we decided to go with some of the music from Henry VIII's time, which is John Brown, very early, up until what's the latest piece? The Gibbons, I suppose, the accompanied viol pieces.
The Tompkins and the Amro, yeah, I think
later.
It's right up to the brink of the Civil War, basically, the later.
That was really our initial idea, to kind of include a massive spread of all the different kinds of music there was.
And you mentioned the accompanying pieces. Well, this is the first time, isn't it, that you've worked with an ensemble on one of your recordings?
Well, we have done a couple of concerts with the Rose Concert of Viols a few years ago, but this is certainly our first recording project with another group.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I think it was great fun for us because Fretwork bring a wonderful kind of experience in this repertoire. And so I think we learnt a lot from them just about how they shape the music, their kind of flexibility within it. And also because they're fewer in number, they can have an even more chamber-like approach than we can. And so I think we learned quite a lot from that.
And I think a lot of this music is really sort of informed by the viol music. You know, the people who were sitting at home singing religious music, once they'd got bored of that piece, they'd move on to the viols and they'd move on to their consorts. So I think the way that they shape things, as Ollie said, the way they pace things and the flexibility in tempo, things that perhaps we weren't so used to from the repertoire that we would normally sing, it's a subtly different approach, I think.
So it's now 2.5 years since you won a Gramophone Award. During that time, you've become ever more international in your audiences and in your work. But talk to me a little bit about how that has continued to develop.
Well, I think the number of concerts that we're doing here is increasing all the time. We're very lucky that promoters seem to be picking up on what we're doing and crucially inviting us back, which is always the key. And particularly when it comes to our reception in America, we've been bowled over by how delighted everybody is out there.
And you've just returned from a
Yes, we've had our longest tour to date in America, 2.5 weeks out there, and going back in April. And yeah, it seems to be at the moment one thing is leading to another, and groups getting ever busier, which is wonderful for us.
And of course, you don't have conductor, which is one of the things people know about you, both in terms of knowing it about you, but the sound that you create as well. So that was a decision from word go, and it's just evolved from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of almost came back by accident originally. The way the group started was just a group of friends, and we decided to get together over the holidays and sing some music, and we all wanted to sing, so we were, rather than being conducting, so it sort of began like that, and then we actually really enjoyed the way that meant that we worked, and we all really enjoyed being able to input our ideas and discuss this music in a lot of detail. One of the great joys of working like this is the chance to really explore this repertoire and get to know it like inside out, every single one of us, and not just one person that's in charge.
Although it's a bit more rehearsal intensive, perhaps it does give us a great flexibility to try out ideas and really to work off each other as chamber musicians rather than simply just follow a beat.
Definitely, and I think we've all really, even individually, learned a lot about music by the way that we've discovered things together.
Now let's talk about the next project that you're working on, which you're about to go and start rehearsing for.
The next recording project we're doing is all music for Holy Week. And it's a really nice mixture of music actually, and a lot of it's continental music, but there's a bit of English stuff in there as well. And it's just some of our kind of favourite music really from the Holy Week time, which is some of the best music ever written for that period in the church calendar. So that's going to be really exciting. We're also including in that disc a piece by John McCabe that he wrote for us a couple of years back, which is the first time we'll have recorded something contemporary. So.
Yeah, it was a commission from the Three Choirs Festival when we performed there, and we were lucky enough to have John come and observe some rehearsals to hear what our voices are like and how we work, and has written a piece that he thinks would work for us, and it's we think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I should say it really does work for us.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly well written.
No, it's
well written
fantastic. Yeah, it's a real kind of honour in a way to have something that is tailored to you as individuals.
Well, Tune Thy Music to Thy Heart is available on Harmonia Mundi. Stile Antico, thank you.
Thank you.
Part of From Profound Centre of My Heart by Giovanni Croce, sung by Stile Antico, and that comes from their new disc for Harmonia Mundi, Tune Thy Music to Thy Heart. And Martin Cullingford was talking to 4 members of Stile Antico.